What's up, good people? Appreciate you tuning in again as we chop up this Sister Outsider once again. Still working on this text. Sister Outsider, today we're dealing with Audre Lorde's essay, The Master's Tools Will Not Dismantle the Master's House. I'm not sure who wants to jump in the water first, but feel free. Who wants to pop it off? Not all. Let's jump at once, though.
I went last week.
I don't know. I guess I'll jump it off.
Yeah, you the youngest in the bunch.
I sat with the title alone for about 3 days.
That's real.
Just trying to unpack the title of how she just masterfully. I don't even know. Like, how would you think to put that combination of words together?
Well, let me ask you this: since you started right there, do you think that it fit? That she answered that question with what she was writing about?
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Once I read it, then it kind of helped me continue to unpack what her whole mission and why I'm assuming she named it what she named it. But I would love to ask her which came first. Did she name it and wrote it, or did she write it and then named it?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Let me ask you this. Since you posed that, you all are preachers. Do you write your sermon and then come back and give the title? Or do you title it and write your sermon from the title? Because because do you not draw from the entitlement or the title rather and say, okay, I have to make sure that what I'm saying matches with the title? Because
not always. It just depends on how it comes.
Now you have to explain that, because this is not now you're a musician, so that may work a little different from you because mentally you think a little differently.
Well, I think it just depends on how, because sometimes you can read a scripture and something jump right off the page of this is the title, and then you go to writing it. Sometimes you can read a passage and you just start getting all the context and all these clues, and you just end up with a full sermon that's nameless.
Right.
So it just depends on how it unfolds.
That's a point well taken.
I would never say that it's like building a house. You can't. A house, you got to build a foundation first. Like it's just impossible to build a roof and then try to put the foundation up under it. But in this context, it just depends on how it unfolds. Now, that's just for me.
Now, with all that in mind, how do you think Ms. Lorde handles her title with her text?
See, I can't say.
No, I'm not saying like if she did it wrong. I'm just saying how does the way that she titled the essay, how does that resonate with what you read? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, it was spot on. It was she didn't leave. She left nothing to be desired about the title after you read the passage.
Because I did see where you quoted. I saw where you quoted on Facebook. Survival is not an academic tool. I saw you post that.
Man, when I read that, I was like, what? But then I got it. Some folk think that to survive is in the realm of academia. But it doesn't equate like that from her perspective, from the outside. And it definitely doesn't equate from from our perspective as black males.
Who are the some folk you talking about?
Well, I mean, you get those. You see, you pulling. But I would say you would get some folk to feel as if, as long as they can get educated and highfalutin, they can survive.
But once again, who are the some folk?
There's no particulars. It's just a broad. I'm just casting a broad net. I can't nail that down to a particular group.
Say more about that. And it's a reason, because I think it's important based on how she articulates blackness, lesbianism, and poverty. She's particular about who she's talking about.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So I'm asking you, based on what you just said.
I will say some people, as in the marginalized, the outsiders.
Okay, you took me from there. Now you brought me in a little bit.
So I would say, in some perspective, people who are either taught or pushed to think that as long as I get or obtain certain things, you can be a part of the American dream, or you can survive. But and I mean, I've come from that camp. But as I've gotten older and have grown in wisdom to realize that it's nothing that I can pretty much earn that exempts me from this horrific life of trying to survive. So, I mean, I could be as educated as I want to be.
Right.
But at the end of the day, all you see, you don't see my education. You see my black skin. You see my 5'9" frame, 265-pound frame, and everything else goes out the window.
That's what I was wondering. So it is more than just the educative part. It
Right.
is, when we see you, we see Negro.
Right. But in some mindsets, it's taught that education is, or academics, or astuteness is the key to survival.
Well, you can see that. Well, you can see that. Let's use Black History Month for an example. Okay, so this is an educational period, a month that we celebrate Black History Month, and the hope would be that there was an interdependence on us celebrating this holiday or this month, not just because for our sake, but an interdependence on everyone in America who doesn't know Black history. And so what she's saying is the master's tools, even with education, you can't dismantle the master's house, because the master doesn't care, apparently, about Black History Month, because if it was a concern, then it would be a part of the regular curriculum of education in America. So until those in power feel an interdependence upon African-American history, then we can never dismantle that house, because they don't, until there's a shift. Because I'll give you an example. Because we follow the pattern so much that we have colonized Black History Month. Let me say more about that, Brian, because I knew you were going to say more. So we don't go and research new people, new African Americans that we don't know. We simply talk about MLK, Harriet Tubman, Bessie Coleman, Rosa Parks, things that we already know. So why, if it's Black History Month and it's important to us, shouldn't we be out there trying to figure out some other history that we don't know? right? That will help us, give us a sense of pride. And if it was important to the masses, an interdependence upon this history, because it should insult America that we have to have Black History Month. You see, if there was interdependence, then they would say, "Oh no, 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 no. I know y'all have Black History Month, but what have y'all considered? Let's integrate this and have an interdependence into the mainstream of America, and so let's fill in those blanks, which we haven't filled in, or we have to erase some of the inaccuracies in history, and let's set it straight." And so until that happens again, and I think this is what Dr. Lorde is saying. The master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. It wasn't built for us in the sense of our history being important. So we have to decolonize Black History Month because of how we were trained.
Let me ask this question. Since you use Black History Month, are you saying that Black History Month is the master's tool?
No, I wouldn't say that it's the master's tool. What I'm saying is to limit it, right? When we just limit on not growing every year and learning more about our heritage, when we just stop at the surface of what we know or what we've already learned, if it's important to you, why don't you? I mean, why isn't it more? Why aren't more people sharing more stuff about Black history? Stuff that I enjoy learning new stuff. I mean, we had some of the kids that did some. They chose their own characters, and I said, "Hey, I said, please don't pick characters that y'all already know." They researched them and brought them to life. Man, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal to see somebody become a character that they didn't know this person. And just to see the pride of somebody representing somebody in our history versus saying this is somebody that I already knew. And so the depth of understanding about our history, it's a constant thirst. It's a constant drive toward learning more about yourself because it's important. Because it's important, not just as a fetal exercise in February, but as a way to truly transform, who you are, who you were. And so you can shape and say, hey, this is where I come from. I posted something about my great grandmother who was captured at 12 years old this morning. Man, people were just like in awe of that. I mean, it was 40 something shares and people were saying, I wish I had access to that type of history to know that I come from somewhere. I came from somewhere great, and that's important to me and my family. So if we just limit on what we do, then we have some issues like that. You see what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
I think I'm not saying it does make sense. I guess I think when we talk about Black History Month in that sense, I guess that's where I have my tension, because I guess I just can't see how. And I think we talked about this a couple days ago about how it could be. It's not so much the quantity, but the quality of the knowledge. I.e., if you read Ms. Lorde here, it's a statement that I kept going over. She says, if white American feminist theory. Now, upon first read, it doesn't seem like that much. But when you look at the American feminist history, and it could just be me making a lot out of nothing, the American is lowercase. And for me, that said something about how that is a critique of what she is doing to feminist theory in a particular way, because rarely do you see folks who are writing not capitalized, unless this is just an error, because I don't know about it in you all's book or in y'all Mine is lowercase. But that struck me because her critique of feminist theory and of these white feminists was, hey, why haven't you reached out to Black feminists and asked them what they think about these particular writings, these particular presentations, and you only sought out me, who quote unquote was, the at the top of the pile for understanding.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying about Black history. You're only taking those things that everybody else knows. You're not really drilling down deep to really, if this history is important. If this is supposed to be a part of America or for the fabric of America, how come we only doing surface, just the same people every year versus drilling down and say, hey, let's ask somebody, let's get some more information, let's get some more people's perspective or some of their family and how important that is in the shaping of America. So I mean, I'm saying the exact same thing that she's saying about just using Black history as an example.
In that point, in that sense, I get you. I can. We on point. What say you, our grand historian?
Whoa, that's a weighty title.
Because I asked you that because how you perceive something as Black History Month in comparison to something as detailed as the master's tools. How does that relate to you in comparison with Miss Lorde's writing?
That's so history oh man, his name just ran out of my head. Henry Clark. Dr.
John Henry Clark.
John Henry Clark says, history, a people without a history is like a tree without roots.
Right.
You see, so what Martin, I get what Martin is saying, but I think the use of Black, so the purpose, first of all, it was just a day, then it was a week, and then it was a month. And it reminds me of the question that's asked, that was asked of me when Colin Kaepernick started kneeling. A white gentleman asked me, well, what does he want? What do y'all want? And to me, the answer to the Black History Month question is, what do you want? We gave you a day. That wasn't enough. We gave you a week. That wasn't enough. Now we're giving you a month. That still ain't enough. Now you want us to actually integrate it into the history of this country. And that ain't gonna happen. We're not gonna let you put roots in this tree and really be a part of America. And so I'm trying to tie all this that was just mentioned. So that lowercase a means, first of all, America ain't America because it's just the United States. There's a whole South America and Canada and Mexico that ain't part of what we call America.
Right.
So that's part of those roots in the history that we're trying to twist, is that the United States is all of America. And so for her to use that law, if that was intentional, she is making a very strong statement about what it means to be America or American. Same thing with Black History Month, or if you look at a history textbook, there's always these sections within certain parts of periods, whatever you want to talk about, the progressive era, 20s, whatever. And so there's always these sections that's set apart for, and the Black people were doing this. It's set aside. So you're American too. Also, we'll include you a little bit, but you're not American. You're American too, also. An addition. So when you talk about Black History Month and what do you want, we've given you a month. Now, take that month and be quiet. But now you're hearing you don't need a Black History Month. We've had a Black president. all these other things that why are y'all separating yourselves out of the mainstream? Well, the reason why is because the master's tool will not dismantle the master's house.
Right.
If we just leave it up to you all, we won't even have that little section in the textbook.
Right.
We won't even have the month. See, so that is, so the argument first was we don't need it. Then we'll give you something just so you'll be quiet. And now, you know, you've made this thing. Now you actually asking us to do some work. We know King. We know. We'll mention X and then talk about how he was Muslim, and so we can separate from him. But Mecca, we might even mention him. But we're not going like deep into a Fannie Lou Hamer or someone else who just was a basic ordinary person. I'm putting that in quotes, who really made a difference in her community. See, because then you start to dismantle my house.
Preach, Reverend.
Yeah.
You can actually do something within your community like Fannie Lou Hamer did to end up on the Democratic convention floor. Now that people don't, that's some of the history you don't know. To understand that this woman who was not very well educated ends up on the Democratic convention floor and makes these statements about being tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, man, that's some history right there. And the other thing I say, and then I'll be quiet. The point of history is, well, I'll be quiet for a little while. The point of history that people miss often, people think want to make history, boil it down to just names and dates and even wars. History is about critical thinking and interpretation. See, so the more you know about history, the more questions you answer, the more questions you ought to have. As Martin was saying, that's exactly what he's getting at. Once I learn about Dr. King, then I need to know about some of these other people that were around him.
Yeah.
Some of these other people that influenced him.
Yeah.
That came before him, came after. You once you start really asking yourself questions about Dr. King, then there's a whole plethora of people that just fall. I mean, you can't help but be
absolutely
look at them, and then the more when you start looking at them,
right,
that opens up a whole nother group of people, a whole nother section. So if you start really using your critical thinking and really start interpreting these things, then it'll open up. It's not that difficult.
And you see, and that's my whole point. Like, so if you'd ask anybody about King being brilliant, they say he wasn't the best preacher in his head. So now you say, what? King wasn't the best preacher? You mean there was somebody else that didn't get the recognition? So you started to make these connections. Then you say, well, guess what? King was really at the March on Washington. He really was losing the crowd until Mahalia said, Tell him about the dream. So you see what I'm saying? So when you start to get these connections, this is what I'm saying. When we got to decolonize the history so that you get people you can touch. When you say Dr. King, you're in rare air. I was named after that man, and I know nothing in my mind thinks I ever get close to what he's done, right? So as long as it's far away, and it's funny though, the deists that wrote the Constitution, maybe they knew more than we thought about saying this, but I digress. But I'm saying, like, so something that you can touch, like somebody like Brian, like your grandfather that did bricks. I heard your story. It inspired me. But if everybody can have that connection to somebody who may be ordinary in the sense of how people view them, but extraordinary in their sense of purpose, oh man, that's dangerous. Think about it. Think about how dangerous that is. I'll give you one example, and I'll shut up. The poet laureate. Oh my God, she was just so. What if I told you that there's 20 people on my block that's better than her? What? You see what I'm saying? To know that type of excellence can come from our community, and we can connect. I mean, that's not.
I'll insert this to take a piece out of Dave Ramsey's mindset and kind of twist it, we need to develop a history snowball. And to spend, and the more we unround, the more that ball gets bigger. The more we untangle, the bigger it gets. And I think that's the big fear now, really, with the master and the master's house, is that there is some kind of wheel that's starting to turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's a fear, and it's now it's kind of a more of an oppression trying to come to kind of slow that wheel back down, because we don't want that wheel to get too much speed, because once it gets going, it's over.
And you hear that now, Nick. When you hear someone say the educational elites, think about that for a minute. Because when it was all white, they were not educational elites. They were just experts in the field.
We got to separate it again.
So now that we are actually moving into those places, but we ain't got to listen to those educational elites.
Yeah.
Hold that point right there, because she makes this point. She says, based on what y'all just said, she said genuine change. And I thought that was interesting language. And that's the last part of the sentence. She says genuine change, and this fact is only threatening to those women who still define the master's house as their only source of support.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, so what does that say in this educational elite, as you just claimed, versus experts? I mean, because this whole, and we've talked about this in many other different areas and forums about, hey, I have to do what I have to do to eat. So if that means I have to play this game and let you label me as an educational elite to get this bag over here to feed my people, so be it.
Well, I think when I read that, it's almost like they have the keys to the elevator switch to the ceiling. So yeah,
well,
you can get to the ceiling.
Take the stairs.
But you can get to the ceiling, but I have the switch. So I can raise the ceiling as much as I still have the switch. I can raise the ceiling no matter how high you get. Okay, we're here.
But listen, but hold up, Nick. Listen to this language right here. Listen to this language. As their only source of support. Because she, Ms. Lorde is very clear, like, but that ain't the only source of support.
Right.
Because you notice she goes back at the other part and she was talking about there is no liberation without community.
Right.
So when I understand community, I don't have to worry about you raising the ceiling. Either you'll bring the ceiling down or we'll tear down your building.
I would go even further. There is no ceiling. I'm going back to Du Bois somewhat, but also what Ms. Lorde is saying here is that you bought the illusion. You bought the lie.
Okay.
Yeah.
The history is a lie.
Right. Yeah.
Going back to Martin's Black history, the history is a lie. There's no such thing as Black history.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah, history.
Yeah.
We have to say Black history because they have made race into a lie. And then, but if you, the other thing that hit me and that comes out with that point is, she said divide and conquer has to become defined and empowered. Define and empower. And what I heard was we have to define for ourselves and stop giving these other folk this authority that is an illusion. See?
Ooh.
That as long as we keep playing this divide and conquer game with them, then we're not getting anywhere. Again, that's the master's tool, divide and conquer. But if we begin to define and empower, the ceiling goes away. Their power goes away. The whole illusion, the whole lie disappears.
Yeah, a good example would be Claudia Colvin, who was actually the first to refuse to take a back seat on the bus. She was 15 years old, but because of the fact that she wasn't pregnant at the time. She got pregnant a few years later, but she was dark skinned, and they thought that Rosa Parks, who worked in the NAACP office, would be a better image, I guess, for the movement. I mean, again, that was to me, that's an example. Like, if she was on, if I'm not mistaken, Walter, historian, she was on the suit against Montgomery, right? Claudia Colvin she was actually one of the 3 people on that suit, right? And
I want to say yes, but I have to
and not Rosa Parks. Yeah, but when we buy into that, I mean, we're creating our own demise instead of versus, okay, she was the first, and if she wants to do it, why because why have to do that for the presentation aspect of it? We're using that tool in terms of making it look better than it really is. I mean, that's our whole history in America, right? It wasn't that slavery wasn't that bad, So when we use these we don't take advantage of those situations instead of just presenting it is what it is. Because one of the things that Audrey was saying something about the differences is learning how to take our differences and make them our strengths versus because at the end of the day, all of our differences, even amongst ourselves, African Americans, let's make them our strengths, not use them as a tool against ourselves. To say, well, you're not light enough to lead the, you're not light enough to lead the boy, be a part of the at least the face of it of the boy boycott.
Well, let me
boycott.
Boycott. Some sister named Tony Strother said true.
I saw that.
And I don't know who she is, but thank you for tuning in. And another Tony Strother said preach.
Yeah.
Some nice woman, beautiful sister, Tony Strother. And then we had a brother Kenneth Middleton, brother from out of Alaska. He made this comment: an embedded illusion is hard to break.
Yeah.
That's pretty thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to address that one right there.
Well, it's like when you if you have a dog in the backyard in the fence, you leave the door open. The dog sometimes don't leave. Like, it looks like the door is open. They wouldn't leave the door open. It's got to be there. The dog never leaves.
Well, and it also looks like, well, I've made it. Now it's up to you. I made it out of it. So, I can't. And again, I guess kind of goes like what Brian was saying. I don't want to mess up what I got.
Right.
Trying to help you cross. And so we, like I said, we have to buy into it. We have to play our part in continuing to divide and conquer, because they couldn't. It never, as much as I hate to admit it, they're right. The slave trade never could have happened without African.
Right. That's true.
Participation. That's true. Our African ancestors participated. They had to, or it wouldn't have worked. So there is a grain of truth in that. Now, where that doesn't in any way, shape, or form get any European off the hook in my book. And some of it was misleading, even in the way that the Africans participated. But I don't go too far into a history lesson on that. But my point, but even today, we knowingly and sometimes unknowingly participate in our own demise. And I think that may be what Brother Middleton is getting at, is that it's embedded in us. We are We have bought into some white supremacy ourselves.
Yes, yeah. But let's I want you to deal with that part. Let's stop, full stop right there. We have bought into our own demise. Maybe it's the verbiage, but that is, and that's hard. That's hard to process in that type of way. We have been a part of our own demise. Bought into our.
Well, I'll say it like this. I'll never forget it. Freshman orientation. And I'm sure any HBCU, well, I ain't gonna say any, but I know mine. You know, that one person gets up there and say, look in front of you, look behind you, look to your left, look to your right. At the finish line, only one of y'all gonna make it.
I think that's a universal saying. I don't think that's just HBCUs.
Sure, instead of throwing empowerment and saying, look in front of you, behind you, to the left of you, and the right of you, we're going to make sure that all of us make it. We're going to empower each other to hold each other accountable, to uplift each other, to help one another whenever one of us is struggling, and make sure that at the finish line, all of us make it.
But is that being a part of your own demise by saying that? I'm asking, and I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm making an asking.
Look what that, especially when it's a room full of African American brothers and sisters. Look what that delivers to the mind. Now I've gone from, okay, this is a new experience, to now to survival, because I don't want to be the one left behind.
But well, let's go back to this what Dr. Ms. Lorde said about survival. It is not an academic. Let me read this. It's not an academic skill. It is learning how to stand alone, unpopular, and sometimes reviled, and how to make common cause with those others identified as outside the structures in order to redefine and seek a world in which we can all flourish.
I agree with that, but then I take you back to when she says, without community, there is no liberation. That saying of only one of you gonna make it is separating the community. It's not saying
I agree with you. I agree with that part.
I agree totally with that piece, but until we bring that community together, that verbiage is just problematic to me. That it's the same as you hearing something like Walter said, I got mine, now it's time for you to get yours.
Well, what does it mean? What does it mean? And maybe I'm switching gears here. So, because we use this language and we use this kind of common sense language of bringing the community together. But ultimately, Ms. Lorde is very clear about it. If we do that stuff, we will destroy the master's house. She's very clear about that.
Right,
in the end, so what does that mean to bring the community together? You know, because I've always been very clear. When these great writers start penning their thoughts, two of the most important sentences that they write is the first sentence and the last sentence. And she says, then the personal as the political can begin to illuminate all our choices. So with that in mind, what does it mean to build or grow or change the community? Because we say that stuff and we throw it out, but what does that mean in a real sense? You know, not in language, but existentially.
We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not even going to try.
Exactly.
If somebody just said right here, I got the keys to that, Martin, you got the keys to the country. What are you going to do in terms of make sure all black people make it?
Man, you don't want me to tell you.
I don't. I mean, I'm.
All
no,
y'all
no,
be
no.
fired tomorrow
No,
if
no,
I told you.
yeah, no. Hold that thought, Brian. Just hold that thought. But I'm
So,
saying when we talk about a plan, and even this sense of, okay, this show you how loosely the language we're using. We said when we say as a community to make it, what does that mean? So let's go back to what W.E. Boyd.
let me even stop you first. But even with the
let me get
go
this in. I
ahead,
get
go
back.
ahead.
So is it what W.D. Du Bois says? He says, don't get caught up in this to this materialistic world, right? Right. But when we say make it, are we talking about, a certain social economic status? Or we're talking about a person that has a standing in the community, may not be money, but a person that can transform a community because instead of taking the 6-figure job in New York City, they stayed in a little rural town of Wallace, South Carolina, and changed that community. Right.
Well, I think.
So we don't even have a lucid definition of that.
Well, I think
of what it means to make it.
It goes back to that conversation we had of mental freedom. That's making it. When you can have a mental freedom, you're not worrying about the 6-figure job. You're not worrying about getting to some place of status and success. When you're mentally free and you can go around and help other people to become mentally free and show that it's more than what America has shown us that making it is, you can stay in that rural community in the middle of nowhere and continue to empower and change lives and the people that you come in contact with. But until you get to this place of mental freedom, you can't. All you trying to figure out is how to get out of there. Because
if y'all
you
watch
hear it so often, because people be like, "Oh, I can't wait to leave. Ain't nothing here."
If y'all watch Queen Sugar, have y'all watched that series about the African American community that had to form? Yeah, all these different roles that we're talking about are played out in terms of trying to get ownership of their farm. The other person is doing it because the brother's doing it because it's his family. It's important for him. Other person is doing it because she wants the power, and the other person is all of a sudden taking this and extending it to politics out of that. You see what I'm saying? Out of this one farm that was important to their family. And so, each one of them took a different path. So the brother who's doing it from his heart in the show looks like he is more the freeloader, right, than the other people because of what what their goal is. And so without a clear it doesn't have to, I don't know if it has making it doesn't have to necessarily be clearly defined, but we need to say what it's not. Like making it doesn't mean that you have to, have the 6-figure job. Making it doesn't mean that, because look, I have so much respect for teachers, and I know they're way paid, but every profession hasn't come to a teacher. And I respect those folks who are willing, some of these people could have 6-figure jobs and they choose to teach in the classroom. That's making it to me. That's making it to me.
Yeah.
And the people who, even those people that are in the cafeteria will say, well, they're just cafeteria workers. We don't know their whole situation. But if they're happy, they're doing what the best that they can in terms of if they're free though, if they're free in what they're doing, then that's making it. Right. Because I know people who have money and are miserable. And if we change his mindset, if we could just change that mindset and define what it means to make it, then we change a lot of things. We change the way our hip hop music. We change the whole, some of the lyrics or what, how that looks to everybody. We change a bunch of things. How we spend our money. We change that. So versus, the person says, I'm standing in line to get Jordan. And the person says, well, no, I'm standing in line trying to buy some Nike stock, and so you begin to say, hey, look, if you buy this stock, let me teach you how you can do this or how you can use this in a different way. So all of that, I think that's important that we understand, or at least have some kind of idea of when we say make it. So our community has to make it. How can we make it? It needs to be, money doesn't need to be the primary objective.
But understand, but and I want to say this and kind of piggyback it off something Ms. Lorde said. But if we say money shouldn't be the primary objective, but yet you say don't buy the Jordans, but take your money and put it in stock so you can make money. It's still money still becomes the primary objective. Is just what are you using this money for? So capitalism.
The reason that the example was about empowering yourself. It wasn't just about the money. It was, instead of taking your money, giving it to somebody who doesn't care about you.
Right.
I'm saying take that money and you're able to have more. I wasn't saying it for that.
Right. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I'm just saying money is still centered there. That's all I'm saying. But let me read this, Walter, and then you say this. Lorde says this. She says, interdependency between women is the way to a freedom which allows the I to be, not in order to be used, but in order to be creative. This is the difference between the passive be and the active being. Go ahead, Walter.
No, that kind of gets at what I was going to say. So a lot of this, we're separating out. We're talking about this stuff as it's happening in a vacuum. When we talk about making it, basically for me, making it means that the master's house has been dismantled, so that I am free. I can if we dismantle the master's house, then working in the cafeteria will make you enough money where that's not a job where you're like, well, this is what Black people do because they're not, they don't fit into the house or the hierarchy and everything else like that. To some extent, and so that sounds like a real lofty, like beyond the world kind of thing. But what Ms. Lorde is saying, and what, again, going back to some other folks we read, W.B. Du Bois, and even Dr. Angela Davis was saying, if we stop buying into the white supremacy, then we can actually create a place or create community where we don't, as Ms. Lorde says, we don't act like we don't have differences. We celebrate the differences.
Right.
And we can still be in community together. So maybe I'm not interested in working for a 500, a Dow Jones company, one of those big companies on the Dow Jones or the Forbes 500. But I really do enjoy the farm life or whatever it is. That person is still part of I don't look down on that person and say they're not part of the community. They're not really striving, trying to be all they can be. That is just, they're free to do that as much as I'm free to join some highfalutin company. And it's all that. And to me, that gets back to the academic, survival is not an academic skill. Like some things are beyond academics. Mm-hmm. You can be, my dad used to say, you be so book smart that you're just dumb.
Ain't no earthly good.
And see, like you said, Walter, what you're saying is real apropos, because the reason that we look down upon jobs is because of how much people make. Yeah. Because there are some people that make a lot of money, like a person that goes around and repos people's cars. Like, to me, like, man, who wants to do that? Like, but they make a lot of money doing it, so it's okay. But versus somebody who does something that I feel that's reputable, as serving food to kids in the school cafeteria, are looked down upon because they don't make any money.
Yeah, but that goes back to the whole thing about, and from what I'm gathering now, is the whole womanist theology goes back to Pan-Africanism and going back to what we're talking about as far as a community of who we are as a people anyway, right? But my point is that in the womanist theology, that's one thing. But from what I'm understanding in the book, she's dealing with a white woman who's a feminist, right? And so what we're looking at, so she's going to look at things totally different, and her experience is going to be totally different than this Black woman who's a womanist, who's coming from the community of dealing with people who don't have. And that's why I was saying about
well, Brother Ken, Audre Lorde is not a womanist; she's a Black feminist.
Right. Well, see, that's the point. So even though she's saying she's a black feminist, but her moves are a black womanist.
They would beg to differ with you. A feminist and a womanist would beg to differ with you in how they understand that, because of and though they parallel, but they would beg to differ and say there's certain things that we have tension with.
Right.
Now what all those are, I'm not sure.
Right. And so and I don't argue that. I guess the point that I'm making is everything that we're talking about. That's why I said embedded illusion, because everything that we're looking at is the illusion of what white folk have created here in this country, and we followed that illusion. We followed that demand, like we're just talking about, the better job, not wanting to be a bellhop or being a lunchroom cafeteria worker or whatever, because we frown upon that. Why? Because of where we are in the country that we live in. Right. And here's the thing, that plantation is wide, brother. And no matter where we go on that plantation, we're on that plantation and we play under those plantation rules. And so that's the thing that I'm talking about as far as that's what I'm saying. That's why, to me now, that this is more of an illusion, because it's something that has been created that we are living under. So no matter what we try to do, we're still working on that feudal plantation. Now that's just my thing, because everything that we're talking about is coming from that black community of way of looking things. Even when we're trying to do better and saying like Martin was saying, as far as not just going out to buy the joints, let's own the joint, right? That's a thought process that has taken many years for us to be able to even think that way. Why? Because it goes back to the whole plantation that we live on. Call these American lands. That, to me, that's what we're dealing with. And I don't know who said this, and I'm gonna set up. But one person said this, and I don't know who said it. He said, but if you want to get a black person, get some shoes, some houses and some cars and all that kind of stuff in front of them, and let them think that they are making it, then we still got them on the plantation. And that's the illusion and so whether it be a rapper or whatever, and if you notice, the first thing that they want to do is buy something flashy. They want to, do something else with the money rather than what we're supposed to be doing with it. But see, I don't know. My thing is, I don't know exactly what we need to be doing with whatever we get. So say if we did get reparations, what are we going to do with it? And that in itself is power, because it speaks more than just the money. Reparations speaks to equality. Reparations speaks to you admitting that you did wrong, admitting whatever. But at the end of the day, the illusion is what they create for us to see a lot of time as black folk.
Well, I think that speaks to the structure, though. I mean, again, when we've had these discussions prior to what we're doing now in earlier books that we've read, it speaks to structure, and that does require being honest. That everybody has to be honest about what has taken place in the history of this country. But I do think that home ownership, as a beautiful Tony Strother is saying here, home and land ownership is part of what we need. But that is only a part, because if I make it, that I might be able to maneuver my way through. But the things that are in place, the restrictions, the laws, the policies, all of those things are still there, and it makes it difficult for there to be this, what I often call this critical mass, that changes the whole system, that changes the way that we're able to move in this world. And part of the problem, part of the challenge for us is that we are really only 12 or 13% of the population. So there's always just the numbers game as well. So, but But I think Martin has brought up before for us to be that small of part of the population, we wield a whole lot more economic strength. The economic strength we wield isn't proportional to the numbers, to the 12 or 13%. So we do have power we have not tapped. We have political and economic power that I think we're beginning to tap into political a little bit more, but I don't think we've really begun to skim the surface of the economic power we could have if we really were in community.
Yeah, I even think there's a misnomer of community, because when we say community, like you're saying, Walter, when we say community, we still have to define that in terms of, what our station is, our position that community is. I mean, we have so many loose ends that need to be tied together. And I think that's what she's saying here, even with our weaknesses, our differences is what she said, help, tie those together and make them cords of strength as well, where it doesn't have to be the same. And even if it wasn't the Air Jordans, it could be, instead of going to buy collard greens, that you become your own collard green farmer. So what it is to switch your mindset and say, well, I can work for myself. I mean, the freedom of, I see people hustling at the flea market, man. I got much respect for those folks that, look, I may work harder, but I'm working for myself. And that sense of pride,
but see that
sense of making.
Yeah. But see that example you used right there, collard green.
Mm-hmm.
That's us.
Mm-hmm.
Collard green. They left the collard greens for this enslaved because that was weed. That wasn't something you ate. We turned that into a profit. That's what I'm talking about. Black folks did that.
I will add this to this conversation. What she says, for women, the need and desire to nurture each other is not.
I was going there.
But
eat your mic. I can't hear you.
Huh?
Eat your mic. Get your mic. It's hard to hear you.
For women,
okay,
the need and desire to nurture each other is not pathological.
Right. Yeah.
But redemptive.
Right. You see.
It is within that knowledge that real power is rediscovered.
Go down to that. Go down two sentences and read that one too, with the only passage.
Only within a patriarchal structure is maternity the only social power open to women.
Yeah.
See, when I read
that is my whole point right there.
That is that breaking out of that blossoming to be whole, I guess would be a word I would use for us, because redemptive is huge.
Redemptive is creative, but that is making profit out of the weed. And we ain't talking about smoking no joint either. We talking about the collard green.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or like they say in the local, or them pig foots. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it might be, or the chitlins,
Whatever it might, the red containers of chitlins.
Yeah.
That don't make no sense.
It goes back a couple chapters where we talked about our creative nature.
Mm-hmm.
But we have in a sense, I don't know, lost that creative nature.
No,
I don't think we have lost it.
I would say we lost
we
it.
Let folks we let folks tell us that our creativity is not respectable.
Yeah,
it's not authoritative.
Yeah.
I keep hearing folks talking about, this rap music. You're not gonna be listening to rap music 200. They're not gonna be listening to rap music 200 years from now. It's like classics, like we listen to. And I'm thinking, I don't ever respond, but I'm thinking to myself, some of this is gonna stick around because it's unique. It's gonna be like it. I can't tell the future, but to me, it's so creative. It's so different. That people 200, 300 years from now, people say they made music without instruments. They made music from music. Man, that's really like, I can only imagine what the future generations will say about the invention of rap at that point. But we let folks say to us, that's gutter, that's lowbrow, that's whatever. And then they turn around and Sony and all these other make millions of dollars off of it. But it's so lowbrow and gutter.
Yeah. And Walter, then we started saying to each other, like, man, you gonna listen to that? You know, you start saying that, and that's the tool. That's the tool. So the tool is to cut us away. We take the same knife now, and we start. Cut us out. Then we start cutting each other, right? So now, that ain't nothing. And this ain't like, nah, man. That's one of the most creative things that the world has ever seen. Hip hop, rap. They say the same thing about jazz. This ain't gonna be around. What is this?
Well,
that's your Love Supreme segue to end, Brian. I gave you a layup.
I was ending it. It was going like, yo, we at the hour, bro.
I was trying to give you that dime, bro.
Yo, we right at the hour.
Love Supreme.
You know, that's how he ended it. Go listen to that fourth section of Love Supreme. They're all the same song played 4 different ways. Think about it. But yeah, man, we've been here an hour. Appreciate y'all tuning in with us. We'll be back next week at 5. Yep. So remember, survive, cultivate joy, and remember to resist and stay dope. Holla.
Peace.